Okay, so for this next lesson in Cinema 4D, we are going to start continuing to talk about some material properties and some things we can control with material channels. So right now I have this plane here, just a flat plane. I have a little sphere going on here. I have a cube, I have this figure, and I have this tube that has a little bit of filleting on the edges. And I also put a sky around here just so we can see, Command R, we can see that there's a kind of a world around here just in case we want to reflect anything in terms of there. The only material I have is the sky material, which is an HDRI put around the sky there, and so we have that there. But I'm going to add some more material. So we're going to go here and I hit the plus key and create a new material, or I can just double click and create a new material. And we're going to make a new material for, let's just say, this cube here. We're going to take the cube. We'll call this cube mat for a cube material, and I'm just going to put this here on the cube, and we'll open this up here on the cube. Here's my cube. Boom, and I'll open this up and we'll see some of the parameters. Again, we still have the shortcut for the parameters in the attributes here, but this gives us some more parameters that we can adjust. So we're going to pick a color for this. Maybe we'll make this cube blue, just to have something to start with. Now the cube is a lighter blue, kind of a purpley blue, I guess. There, it looks like that. When we hit render, it looks like that. Cool, and we have that cube there. We're going to focus on the cube. I can actually click on the cube and hit the O key, put the cube front and center so we can really see that in terms of there. So let's talk about some of the other properties. The last lesson in part one of this, we did color and diffusion and luminance and transparency and reflectance. We should look at environment, fog, bump, normal, alpha, glow, and displacement. Whew, all of these guys. So we got a lot to cover in a short amount of time, but we'll get through it. It'll be easier, it'll be quicker. Immediately we have environment. Now environment is one I'm not a really big fan of. I see how it works, I see what it does, and I see its usefulness, but I'm not really huge on it. Let's talk about environment in terms of this. If I get rid of default specular, which will create some default specular light on here, but there's not really a lot of default specular light here. I guess if I added a light in here and threw a light in, we haven't talked about lights, but if I were to add a light into the scene, I could say add a light in here and have this be lit, and based on the intensity of this light, when I rendered this, there'd be some specular highlight on different objects, more in the sphere than anything else. But that's, if I added a light in. Let's forget about the light for a second. We'll go back to the cube mat. I'll go back to the cube and look at the cube here. Now, part of this is inside of the reflectance. If I get rid of default specular and say, let's just make this chromey. So we're going to go here, we're going to add in maybe a Beckman, maybe a GGX. Let's do a GGX. I'm always a big fan of GGX. I don't know why. I don't even know what GGX stands for. So now we have this reflective looking material. There's a little bit of a roughness on here, so we can reduce some of the roughness and have this be really reflective. Here it is, like so. And you can see this. We'll zoom out a little bit. I just keep hitting Command R or hitting this button up here to render this and see how this looks. Okay, so now we see this instead here. Maybe I'll even get rid of the plane for a second. Whoops, sorry. I think save. I'm going to take this and go in here and just say, let's come around here. And so now we have some reflectance in this. And so we're reflecting some things inside here, and we're seeing some reflectance go on. Fair enough. If we didn't have something to reflect, and this would be the case, if we didn't have a sky, so if the sky didn't exist and we didn't have something to reflect, you would see that there'd be nothing. It'd be pretty much black. It'd be reflecting the floor and the other figure there, but basically on the other ends, nothing really reflected because there's nothing really reflect. Well, what we can do in here is we can create an environment. And so we can add an environment in here and add something that is just designed for this thing to reflect. So now here, boom, we have nothing there. But we can create a texture in here and create an environment kind of internal to the image. So it would be the thing that would be reflective inside the image if there was no reflection. So we can go here and we can load an image, for example, and we can grab something. We're going to grab in this image here. I'm just going to go to my hard drive here and grab in this, let's go into here, and we'll go into here, and I'll just grab this map of USA. This map of USA, and when I grab this map of USA, it asks me, it says this image is not in the project search path. Do you want to create a copy of this? No, I know where the image is. I'm going to not create a copy. It's going to be in here. And now in here, you're not seeing any reflection. And the reflection doesn't exist because it's not really reflecting this because we already have a reflection. So let's get rid of this, and let's delete that, and let's go here. And now you can sort of see in here, there's kind of the reflectance of this USA map. If we bring up this USA map, if we go here to the environment layer and we said, let's find this image, locate image here, and we located this image and saw this USA map, we'd have this picture of this USA map that looks like this. And this is kind of silly, but this is This is kind of a reflective layer that's internal. It looks somewhat reflective, but it's not really reflective. It's just kind of reflecting this layer. Now, once you have actual reflectance, so once you have actual some kind of, layer that provides reflections, it says, hey, you want to use the actual reflection that exists. Now, why would you use the reflectance, or why would you use the environment and not the reflectance? I don't really know. I'm not really sure. I think ultimately, at the end of the day, you want the actual reflectance. I think maybe, theoretically, and I know this is crazy, if you had something that you had a whole bunch of images and they all had, some level of reflectance on them. Say, for example, we had a material on the sphere, and the sphere had some kind of, crazy reflection on it, like GGX or something, and it was reflecting our environment there. And you said, hey, we're going to bring in a sky material back in here. So we'll bring a sky back in here, and we'll put in the cloudy sky there. And so this material is actually reflecting this. But we wanted this to have its own particular reflectance. Theoretically, we'd want this to have its own separate reflectance. Like, I could imagine, like, you'd have a figure that was like in a room, and it was a person in a room, but inside their eye, in their lens of their eye, you could see a reflectance of something they were looking at. Or maybe like if you were looking at like a telescope, the lens of the telescope would be showing something else in the reflectiveness of the lens of the telescope that wasn't everything else. So you could kind of use this to say, hey, I don't want it to reflect the actual environment, and have the actual environment reflectance here like this. I don't want it to reflect the world. I just want to turn this on here and then have it reflect just this. That's the best guess I can. Somebody might have a better idea of how to use the environment versus reflectance, but it's kind of like an internal reflection that just exists for this one material that doesn't exist in the universe, that's separate from the rest of the universe. So if you want to go kind of a little bit smaller scale, you could just have an environment as opposed to an actual reflectance. That is there in the reflectance. So that's there as an idea. Let me just continue to label because I'm not really labeling really well. So I'm going to call this sphere mat. I do like to label my stuff so I know what I'm talking about. And then here we're going to go to this this tube, and the tube, we're going to make a material for the tube. I'm going to call this tube mat. And in here we have tube mat there like so. And we're going to put this on the tube. And here we're going to go to tube mat and look at the next channel, which is fog. Fog is kind of fun. It's a little silly. We're going to make this transparent. So we're going to go here into transparency. We're going to turn on transparency, and we're going to set a transparency amount. Right now, the transparency refraction rate is 1.517, which is pretty good. Looks okay. Looks kind of cool. We could change some of the things, some of the absorption, some of the Fresnel reflectivity. We could go to a different thing. We could go to, I don't know, Pearl or something and have a level of Pearl transparency reflection. So that's how it refracts through the material there. We hit Command R, we have this kind of there. Well, we could add in here. So we have this kind of, clear piece of glass tube, I guess. We could add some fog in here. And so we could add some fog inside of there, and this would add some fog in there. Now the fog, for a lot of these, are not going to show up until we render. So we're not going to see it really well until we render. And now this, it's kind of see, it's taking a little bit longer to render. A little bit of time. Fog takes a little bit of time. So now it's kind of clear, but it kind of like has some kind of like fog inside of the glass. I kind of like that for a little bit of fog in glass. You can change the brightness, and again, if we don't remember, the brightness is not necessarily how bright it is. The brightness basically reflects how much of it is there. And then so we can have a little less of it, or a little softer, a little gentler there. And so that's less fog. It's still the color white, right? We could still make it white. We could make like a crystal ball looking thing, I guess. We could make it this like purpley and have like a weird purpley fog in here, and then just have a little bit of it. Command R. I keep hitting Command R and having it in there. It's still turning out white there. Cool. So that is fog, a little bit there. There's also control here for the distance. I'm not sure what the distance does. I'll be honest. Sometimes it's just playfulness. Sometimes it's just playfulness, and we set that at a different level of amount of fog. I keep hitting Command R so we can really see this and have it there. So it just kind of blurs out the transparency, or puts in there. We could go back here to the cube if you wanted to. Look at the cube here. Whoops, sorry. Let's zoom out here for a second. Let's look at the cube, not through the figure, but let's look at the cube here, and we'll come back in here and look at the cube mat, and we'll say for the cube mat we can add some fog into the cube mat, and that would add some foggy looking, kind of almost making it semi-transparent insert of there, and how it there. I wonder if we change the color here to pink or something. Would that change how this overall looks? in there. Yeah, it's a little bit, you can see a little bit of pink inside as it interacts with the colors. It made it kind of purpley pink as it fogs on the inside. So that's another way of kind of blurring this out or making this there. Maybe the transparency doesn't work as well, but we try stuff, we experiment, we explore, and we get this kind of fog looking thing there. You can see how it looks. It looks kind of cool. Anyway, so we can turn the fog on there. And the fog is one of the ones, again, like environment, I rarely ever use. I don't think I've used it really for anything. I guess it could do some cool things, but not something I use on a regular basis. But we'll continue to explore and come up with other things we can play with. The next one is going to be relatively important to me. So I'm going to go back here to the sphere mat. And I'm going to go to the sphere mat and say, in the sphere mat, I can go here and I can get rid of, we'll get rid of the reflectance. I'll get rid of the, well, maybe I'll just take the reflectance and I'll say this layer 1, which is this GGX. I want to go to layer Fresnel. And I want to keep the color. So the color here, we're going to make the color something like orange. Make it relatively orange here and make it pretty orangey. And then I want to go to the reflectance and I want to change the layer Fresnel to something like dielectric. And so now it's orange, but it still has some reflectivity to it. So now it's like an orange like pool ball or something like that. And so there. So the next phase we have is bump, normal, and we'll talk about displacement as well. So bump. Bump is, you're going to add some bump in here, so you're going to turn the bump channel on, and it's going to add some bump there. Now the bump depends upon a texture. Now simply enough, we could add something like a noise texture. And what a noise texture will do is we'll add some noise there. Now, this won't show up, but here, when you hit render, it will do nothing. Well, actually do something. It'll actually do something here. Displacement won't do anything. We'll talk about that in a second, I promise. And now it gives the simulation of there's bumpiness on the edges, which means we can go into the noise here, and we can say in the noise, we can say change the scale. So I just double clicked, I went into the noise, change the scale to something smaller. So you're going to see here, we're going to change this down to 40% and it's going to be smaller bumps. Maybe we'll change it even smaller, go to 10% and have it even smaller bumps. And now when we render this, it looks like that. Looks like kind of almost like a fuzzy ball. If it didn't have so much reflectance, it would look almost like a fuzzy ball there. Yeah, kind of a fuzzy ball. And so we have some reflectance, then it looks weird. So we get that idea there. And so we have this bump, and this black and white pattern decides between the black and white how much it protrudes out, I guess. And so we can change this type of noise. We can go in here and change the noise to a different type of noise. We can go to Luca and change the noise type. We'll make this a little bit bigger so you can really see this. We'll go to global scale and change this to bigger so you can see different types of noise. Now you get, again, I keep hitting Command R because I think it really gives me some value to see what's going on there. We'll take the global scale, we'll make it even bigger. There, so now it's even bigger noise. Now you can see this kind of weird noise. Now the noise is not protruding up that much. We could increase the contrast here, so we can actually go to the contrast controls and adjust the contrast to make it more contrasty. And maybe the craters, the bumps will be a little bit more detailed. We could really crank up the contrast to make it more detailed. There, now we have a lot of, texturization there of how this is. But we could choose a different type of noise. We could go here and choose, I don't know, something like this. This is Cell Voronoi. Oh, now that looks like that, so basically on that pattern. Let's go back out of here, and go to the bump strength is only 20%. We'll crank it up to like 60%, and then, man, it's going to be really detailed in there. And try MIP fall off, turn that off, see what it does. Anything different, anything noticeable? Some of these things aren't really noticeable, I can notice. I notice they're not noticeable. Again, we'll double click in here, we'll try a different noise pattern. I don't know, anything look exciting to you? This guy, Voronoi 1. There's some other noise patterns here. Voronoi 3. Ooh, Voronoi 3 looks like that. So a different kind of weird noise pattern. Sometimes until it's rendered, you don't really see how well it looks or how well it looks, and it gives sensation there. Now, if we didn't want to use noise, if we said, hey, let's not use noise, let's go to a different pattern. We'll go to surfaces, let's say tiles, and this will create tiles here. Now it looks like, an old school grenade, I guess. We can have a tile pattern. So if you're looking for a certain pattern, it's kind of there. Now we could take this bump strength and we could crank this bump strength up. Now this pattern is, this tile pattern is red and black and there. So it's red and black and gray. So it's looking based on the contrast levels. But if we change this red and gray to be pure white, we might get a bigger bump. We might get a more defined bump here, because it's the difference of brightness. So the brightness is defining how it falls and where it is. And you'll see that in the tile pattern, there's some things we can do in the tile pattern. We could have this bump like there, and we could say, again, render. You'll see this looks more broken out like there, and you have some of those controls in there. If we wanted to, we could say, let's go to tiles, and here tiles, and we could say maybe with the tiles, instead of square patterns, we do something like maybe circles. You have circular tiles, or maybe even rings. I think rings might work. Rings would give almost like a basketball looking thing. So if we had these tiles here, the grout would be black. We'll take the tiles, we'll make them all white, so they're all like this, and then we'll make the grout width a little bit bigger. Let's see how this looks here. This looks like that, so the grout is pretty prominent. We could change the grout width to be either bigger or smaller, I think. Maybe let's raise it down to like 1 or something. So the grout width is small, and the bevel width will bring down here. So it's barely there. And then we have kind of like a basketball looking thing, kind of like a basketball looking cutout sort of idea there, sort of like a thing there. And we could change the overall global scale, make this a little bit bigger. So it's bigger. You know, now we have sort of like a basketball thing. I think you'd have to get an actual basketball texture to change how this looks. Again, the bevel width, we can make that into 1%, so it's just really small, but really there. And we have that kind of cut out, so we have that kind of framing out like some kind of a ball pattern. I guess you'd have to find something that wasn't just rings, but something of a ball pattern. You could change the horizontal, what's called the U scale, and the V scale. So this is like your XY, but it refers to U and V, which is basically how textures apply. And so you could change that there and get kind of a ball shape, some kind of a unique, brand new basketball shape or something. Maybe bring the V scale down or something, and then have it like this. And there's some play you could do and make some kind of different patterns inserted there. So that is the bump. Now the weird thing about the bump is the bump looks like, if we go here to something relatively simple, like if we went to surfaces and we went to say, even we tried surfaces like wood. So the wood pattern would give us kind of a wood grain texture. We'll make this a little bit bigger, so we'll go in here to the wood. Now this is only gray and gray to brown, and this is only colors. So we're going to go here and we're going to choose this guy, and we're going to change this to black. And this guy to say white, because we're going to have the same wood grain, except this wood grain here is going to be full brightness here, like this. And then here we have this black and white. And this will give us more, because the distance between the contrast difference is there, and we have some of the more of that like there. Now we're having a little bit of graininess inside of here, so there is a little bit of a graininess in the shade. We could take the grain out of the shade and say this is more just white or black, and now we have less. So now we have like a wood grain here. Now the idea being is with this bump channel, we can make all kinds of bump channels for whatever we want to do. Whatever kind of bump channel we want to make, we could explore and play and make different bump channels. Here's the thing about bump channels. When we make bump channels, these bump channels, you would imagine that if you ran your fingers across the surface of this sphere, you would feel it, right? You would feel it there. The truth is you wouldn't. This is not changing the geometry of this. So if we did this to the cube, for example, if we said the cube material, we went to cube material and added some bump, maybe we add, say, on the bump information, we add we add a surface of fire. What would fire do? I want to see fire. Boom. We'd add a fire bump there. And again, this is black and white and gray there. And so we add a fire bump onto the material, and you can see that this is going to be here. We could make this like this color, make this more white, I guess. Even make this, say, this red, and make it even a whiter color. So we have a little fire pattern there. You would see some surface there, and you'd see that this looks, when you render this, that it looks like it's like sticking out, like it's attached. Well, this is not. This is not physically changing the geometry and making it thicker, which means like if I took this and pushed this against this layer here, even if, say, hypothetically, we'll do something crazy. We'll say in the sphere, instead of the wood material, we'll just choose surfaces and we'll choose checkerboard, because checkerboard's going to be the most prominent, basically. It would look like this. Well, it doesn't actually feel like this. It doesn't actually have this dimension. I'll just turn the reflectance off for a second. It doesn't have the depth. It's a painting on the surface. The surface is still smooth. So this surface is still smooth. This surface is smooth. It doesn't feel like it looks. It's almost like if you went to like a restaurant. Sometimes you go to a restaurant and you see like they have a brick pattern on the wall, but the brick pattern is really just like wallpaper. That's what you're feeling. You're feeling smooth wallpaper that just looks brick-like, and that's all bump does. So bump doesn't like extrude the geometry anyway, or create any kind of new geometry that makes this bigger or smaller. It just, you get the idea. I think I'm just going on here. So this is the bump channel, and this is how the bump channel works. beyond the bump channel, we'll go back to the cube here. Beyond the bump channel, you turn the bump channel off, you have this channel here called normal. Now, normal is kind of like the bump channel. It works specifically like the bump channel, except it works a little bit more specific in terms of there. There is something in the universe called a normal map. And so if we go onto the internet and type in normal map, you can look at normal maps for different things. And there's even a normal map generator, but we'll look normal map for, let's look at normal map for alien spacecraft. Sounds better. Alien spacecraft normal map. And you'll see patterns that look like this. Random patterns that people have made that look like this. They're usually some combination of blue and green and purple and red and pink, and they have this kind of pattern that looks like this. You'll see this pattern all the place, and you know that when you see this, boom, you know that this is a normal map. And the way that normal maps sort of work is, rather than you working with just brightness, rather than just work with white and black and different levels of brightness and different levels of contrast, normal maps look and they say, hey, we're going to take something like this and we're going to make different patterns of different amounts of how things actually protrude, and we'll kind of have it shaped a certain way so it looks more realistic. So normal maps are really better. Ultimately, normal maps are better because they allow for some more realistic kind of depth on the surface. So if people will go with certain cameras and take normal maps of actual surfaces, so if they're going for concrete, if they're going for wood grain, if they're going for an alien spacecraft, you know, somebody went out and took a picture of an alien spacecraft at, I don't know, Roswell, New Mexico or somewhere, and they went and they got some kind of alien spacecraft texture. Now, could you make this yourself by, you know, extruding the geometry and playing with some? Yeah, you could, but this is a really nice place. We can say, just open this. I'm going to steal it off the internet, and we'll have this normal map. And I'm going to say, we're going to save this image as a JPEG. We'll just save this to the desktop for now. We probably should put it in a good place. We'll call this alien normal alien. Imagine if you met like a normal alien, like just a run-of-the-mill, everyday normal alien. I don't know. What would I guess would it look like a normal? I don't know. Anyway, so we're going to go to normal, and we're going to go to texture, and here we're going to load in an image, and in load an image, we're going to go to desktop and go to alien normal, and here in alien normal, we're going to bring in alien normal. It says again, this image is not in the project search path. Would you like to create a copy of the project at the project location? Yes, no, I don't want to do that. Anyway, so now we have this pattern here, and this pattern gives a more realistic appreciation of what's happening on the surface. Could we have done this with a bump map? Yeah, but this is a little bit more accurate to realistic accuracy. So if you're looking for something, if you're looking for, I don't know, something like, you know, some kind of stucco material, or some kind of, you know, granite material, you're looking for some kind of cinder block material, or you're looking for even like Egyptian hieroglyphics there, you could probably go on the internet and probably find normal map Egyptian, and it would actually have the actual texture of how, you know, a stylized Egyptian stone wall. This is how we would make this, and it would look more realistic. You know, it would look, you know, there's kind of a hieroglyphic looking wall. So if you're looking for some kind of a hieroglyphic looking wall, open image, new tab, we could say this, save image as, and say Egyptian normal. We could apply this one, load image, go in here, Egyptian normal. It's going to ask me again. No, I don't want it there. And now we have this kind of really exciting looking, man, that looks really cool. And that looks really cool, like it looks really real, or like better than I could make. People make these kind of normal maps. Now, it doesn't matter that this is blue. I understand that this looks blue and this looks blue. This is just whatever color this is. So if this was yellow, it would look yellow. But it's just really, it replicates what really, you know, the depth and the extrusion and the surface of this really feels like. Again, the normal map is just wallpaper. So it does look really real. It does look like if you ran your fingers across this, if you could really feel, you know, the bumps and the curves and the etchings and whatever else it may be. It's not there. It's just wallpaper that sort of looks like that because of the shading, and it does have that as an idea. We will talk a second for about alpha and glow, but while we're here in bump and normal, I do want to talk about displacement. So I'm going to talk about displacement, and I'm going to look at the sphere mat again. And so displacement, we're going to look at the sphere here. Displacement will basically say, now with displacement, I'm going to displace based on the geometry. So let's look at this. I'm going to get rid of the bump, and we're going to go back to this surface here. We're going to get rid of the bump. Okay, now we have the smooth surface. So again, it's going to ask us for a texture. Now, a couple things to include. Well, actually, we're going to go here, and we're going to go to let's go to the tube, for example. Let's just play with the tube. We'll turn off the transparency. We'll get rid of the reflectance. We'll actually add a color. We'll make this, say, a pink or something. Pink tube. Cool. And we're going to say we'll get rid of the fog. I don't think we need the fog anymore. Command R, it looks like there. Okay. We're going to go to displacement on the tube. I'm going to O to center that and have this here on the tube. We'll just put it here like this. Great. Here's our tube. And we're going to displacement, and we're going to add a texture. So in here, we're going to add a texture, and that texture is going to be on here. We're going to go noise. We'll just add a noise texture. It's going to add a noise. This will actually displace the geometry. So this will actually make the geometry displaced a little bit. So now you notice that this does not show up, and it is going by contrast. So it is going by contrast. And so if we increase the contrast, make it lighter and darker, we can change the scale, we can change the type of noise. We're going to hit Command R. We won't see it until we hit Command R. We're going to render this little button up here, render this there, and you're going to see that this is going to change the geometry. Now this actually changed the geometry. So Command R, this actually changed geometry, which means this would feel like it's thicker in certain places. So NB, we have this, Command R, it's going to have, the actual geometry there. Now, if you had more geometry on your tube, for example, if we go to our tube here, and we said, let's go to objects and say, instead of rotation segments 32, we went to like 128. Boom, a lot of rotation segments. And then instead of height segments, we had 4. Let's change this to 24. Now we have a lot of segments. You're going to see that when I hit this, okay, the geometry changes because it only exists because the geometry is there. It only exists within the span of where the geometry is. So the more segments you have, or the more polygons you have, the more the geometry is going to be there. So we have a little bit more detail in terms of there. Command R, we have it there. And you're going to see as I change this to, I don't know, 64 or something, it'll look different. If you change the rotation segments to 256 or something, it's going to look even more different depending on how much geometry it has to work with. So it's using the noise and creating the geometry based on noise. If I have rotation segments, if I have 16 and I have height segments down to 2, guess what? It doesn't really have a lot to work with. It doesn't really have a lot of space to work with. So let me show you two things in terms of there. We'll go back here and we'll say, okay, cool. Let's go back to this, and we'll go back to this cube here. I didn't realize the cube was so high. Let's move the cube down a little bit. There we go. Excellent. Let's see. Where's the cube's coordinates? Cube's coordinates should be at, the object is at 100 by 100. Yeah, let's change this to 50. I didn't realize I moved that out. And so we're going to go back to the cube. We'll go back to the cube material here, and we're going to turn off the normal. Forget the normal. We're going to add some displacement. Now, again, this cube is set to, in here, the cube is set to what? Object controls are 1 by 1 by 1, which means in here, if I try to add, say, a noise-based displacement, guess what? This barely does anything. It doesn't change at all because the geometry is not there. Now, I could say, you know what? I really wanted this to have 1 by 1 by 1, or maybe I just wanted this to be, I wanted this to be on the cube. I wanted this to be 2 by 2 by 2. So we can make this, say, even 3 by 3 by 3, and it looks like there, but it has the displacement, and so it now displaces kind of awkwardly. It displaces kind of like that, which is not the displacement I want. There is a control in here called sub-polygon displacement, and you can turn this on and add in some sub-polygon displacement, and that would do more displacement without having to increase the number of polygons there. So it works, it kind of just simulates the idea that, yeah, I know you wanted only, 3 by 3 by 3 for this thing because you're doing something that wanted 3 by 3 by 3, but we really, personally, we would really like to have this have more displacement. And so here, we have more displacement, more polygon-based displacement, some other things we can do. That's the sub-polygon displacement. I want to show you one more wrinkle that I ran into with there, and with displacement on the sphere. If you put the sphere displacement and you go in here and say sphere displacement, add noise, you'll see, hey, it looks like that. And there's tons of polygons on the sphere. The sphere has a lot of polygons going on. We could even crank up the sphere's number of polygons here and say, let's crank this up to 128 segments, and man, there's lots of segments. And when you go hit Command R, it looks like a perfect sphere. Man, what the heck. And this, I ran into this totally by accident. I was hitting Command R and I was like, sphere. And I was actually teaching a class one time. It was really embarrassing. And I was like, why is this? I keep hitting render and it's not doing there. Do you know the sphere has a control in it that says render perfect? which means regardless of what you do to it, it's going to say, hey, the heck with you, I'm going to render this perfectly. And so even if you displace it, it says, hey, render this perfectly. And here's a fun thing about the sphere. You can actually reduce this down to like 12 segments, which looks like the worst sphere ever, right? You hit Command R, all of a sudden it's like a perfect sphere. Why is that? Why is it down to 12 Look at it, it's down to 12 segments. Look how chunky it looks. Let's see how low we can go. We'll go in here to the sphere, and we'll go here to like 8 segments. 8 segments. That doesn't even look like a sphere anymore. Command R, perfect sphere. Why? Because render perfect is on. It's always on in render perfect. Well, you turn that off, and now it looks like a bad sphere. So here, we'll crank this back up to 64, so it actually looks like a sphere. And now, without render perfect on, now that we have the sphere-based material, and the sphere material has some displacement on, and the displacement is noise, we can crank up the noise height, make it even bigger. Displacement, 50 centimeters. Oh boy, boom. Now we have, look at that. And now we have something that looks really spiky. But that render perfect, man, that sucker caught me right there. If that's on, nothing happens. Turn that off, all of a sudden, okay, now we get the spike controls. Now notice how spiky that is. If we change the segments in this case, we went to 256 segments or something, it might look more rounded in terms of the points because they're not hitting sharp edges. There, see how it looks a little bit more rounded. We could even go back in here into the sphere material and say, let's go to displacement and go to sub-polygon displacement. That will divide each of the polygons into 4s. And now it looks even rounder. But now the edges, even though it looks spiky, it looks like round spiky. It looks like kind of like a sea anemone or something. It looks kind of a weird roundy spiky. It will take longer to render. The more stuff we do, the more material we do, and the more polygons, and the more edges we do, and the more geometry we're doing, it's gonna get busier and it's gonna get more involved. All right, so a couple more things here. We're gonna turn off displacement, and we're gonna go here and look at these last two, alpha and glow. I'll do glow really quickly because glow is really easy. So we're going to go back here to the sphere, and just for fun, we'll turn the sphere back to render perfect. I think that's nice. Such a nice little feature, render perfect. It always looks perfect no matter what we do. We could lower the number of segments down to, like, I guess 16 now because whatever, it's going to render perfect. We don't need that many polygons. It'll figure it out. But we'll go back to the sphere material. We'll go to glow, and we'll turn on the glow. Glow is really simple. It adds a little glow around it. There we go. Little glow, little halo glow around it. You could set your glow. It says use the material's color, so you could use the material's color by default, or you could turn that off, and you could add a different color glow around this. You could add a pink glow, I guess. Now we have a pink glow. Again, this will only show up when you render, so now we have a pink glow around it. And then you have some controls to adjust the inner strength of the glow, the outer strength of the glow, and the radius of the glow. Make it really big. Again, Command R, boom, now we have a super glow there. We can make a glow there. You can change the frequency there of the glow. You can change some playfulness of the glow, the brightness of the glow. Crank it up. It goes up to 100 or 0 to 100. This is one of those ones that only goes to 0 to 100, and you get a glow around it. If you wanted to have something that had a natural glow around it, there you go, you have a glow. It's kind of basic, kind of simple, but some playfulness you could do with there. You could make some better glow maybe in After Effects, but for here, you have a glow that exists. It looks okay. It's a glow. I don't think we need to spend too much time on that. That's a simple control there. You'll see a control called alpha, and if you're familiar, if you know, certain images will have a level of transparency. So if you're in some image there and you say, this image comes in with a level of transparency, for example, we have, I don't know, we'll just grab this image here. This picture of this giraffe right here, this TIFF file giraffe, has some transparency, so you can sort of see the rest of the world behind the giraffe. Here, you can see everything else. It is transparent around the giraffe, and so your level of transparency is alpha. Alpha information is transparency. Certain images come with alpha information, and we can add alpha into there. So we can take this layer, this material, and we can say, hey, let's make this somewhat invisible. Not transparent. Transparent usually has a refraction level, and that refraction makes it look like glass, or looks like plexiglass, or looks like something else that is semi-transparent, like a cup or something. No, this is going to actually eliminate parts of the screen. So we're going to go to alpha, and we're going to say alpha here. We're going to say let's add a surface here. We'll go to surface, we'll go to tiles, and we're going to change our tiles to there. And now when we render this, you're going to see that parts of this image is completely invisible. Now, it needs to be black and white to be completely there or completely visible, and none of this is really black and white. Again, we could make this here. We could say, make the tiles here white. These tiles are completely white, so they're completely visible. These tiles are completely white. And now this grout, we'll make the grout a little bit bigger so you can really see the grout there. Oh, that's too big. Let's make it 20%. There we go. And so now we can really see that part of this is visible, part of this is not visible. And if we make light, light will shine through here. So if we add in, say, a volumetric light or something here, and put our volumetric light in the middle of this, we'll make a light and say, we'll add this light to the sphere. We'll put the light in the same place as the sphere. We'll just make it like 0 by 0. A quick trick. So we have this light in the center here. If we were to take this light, just, this is advanced, we haven't talked about this there, and we were to add, say, visibility for the light, and say, or go to general and say visibility, and we say visible volumetric. So this light here would be, boom, it would shine out through. So these are actual physical holes, right? We'll take the grout, we'll make the grout a little bit smaller, we'll make it like just 5% again. 5% here. And so now it's just really small holes, maybe even 1%. Oops, not 0%. We'll go 1% and we'll change the bevel width to 5%. And so now it's just tiny little holes here. Again, if we render this, all of a sudden this light will literally shine through as though this material, now we've literally cut holes in the material. Alpha will actually cut holes in the material and make the other parts of the material not actually exist. So they don't actually exist. And so now we have holes literally for light to shine through so you can actually see through these. These aren't transparent like a window or like a piece of glass or like a piece of cellophane. These are actually not there. So we can use alpha to kind of remove parts of this. So if we had this there, if we even took like the tiles here and we said instead of tiles we had something like checkerboard, surfaces checkerboard, it would look like this. So we'd have this like there. We could change the checkerboard sizes to something, the frequency to like 2 by 2 or something there, really small, like really like boom. And now we have really, you can just really see, we have hard edges command R, we have really, like part of this is there, part of this is not there. It's sort of still there, but it's kind of there or not there. We have this geometry cutting into this like so. So we have those controls, we have those abilities, we have those techniques of controlling there. We have that there. So we went through color and reflectance the first time, then we went to environment, fog, bump, normal, alpha, glow, and displacement. I will show you really quickly, there's viewport, which will show you how it looks in the viewport. One of the things about viewport is animate preview. I want to show you this as an idea, just for a quick thing to cover. We'll go back to the sphere here, and I'm going to get rid of the alpha channel, and we're going to do the color channel. Now the color channel is here, it looks like there. We're going to get rid of the light also. The light is actually buried inside of here. We don't need this light anymore, we're going to go here. And for the color channel, I'm going to go to texture. And I'm going to go to texture, I'm going to load an image. And in load an image, I'm going to go here into work material, and I'm going to grab this shot of, no, actually we're going to go to L1 workflow, and we're going to grab in this shot of New York City. This is a video clip. This is a video clip inside of here. It's going to say this image is not in the search path. No, I know where this image is. I'm going to put it in here, and then boom. Ooh, let's wait for it. Let's wait for it. Show up. It's a quick video clip, so it's going to bring in the video clip and bring it in there. And as it brings in the video clip, it's going to come in as a video clip. The problem is that when we're here, when we watch this, here, if I look and I grab this image, let me just grab this image to show you. I'm going to double click in here. We're going to go to this image here, and we're going to say locate image. And this image is right here. This image is a QuickTime movie. It's a video clip. It's a shot here of New York City. If you took the After Effects tutorials with me, you probably saw this a couple times, and we have this video clip. The problem here is that this looks like this, and it plays through, except it doesn't play. It doesn't move at all. It doesn't play at all. Like it doesn't, you hit play down here, and you play this, and it doesn't animate the preview. It does not animate the preview. And so, in here, you will see in viewport, it does say animate preview. And animate preview will allow us to animate the preview. Now that I've checked this box, when I play, it should play in the city. Now, will this play back slowly? Yeah, maybe. It's doing its best job, but, take some time. If you need that, sometimes you do need that, sometimes you don't need that. If you had like a black back wall that had like a video screen and you had a video in the video screen and you want to be able to see the video screen, you probably want to be able to animate the preview and have that work there. So you have that control to animate the preview. That's there. There's some other controls in here about what it does in the viewport, etc., and how it applies this. The texture preview size, you can change the size inside the viewport. So this is how it exists before you render it, whether or not it shows up in terms of what it does when you render it. The viewport display, you could look at different information in the viewport display. There's so many different controls you have in how the viewport does it. And the assignment down here is just what it's assigned to. So now it tells you if you needed to know that this sphere material had been applied to this and the plane, it would say, oh, it's on the sphere and the plane. That's just what it's assigned to. So it gives us that assignment of it's assigned to the sphere and the plane. Lastly, there's a little control here called illumination. And illumination says, how does this work? So does this generate GI? We'll talk about GI a little bit later. We'll talk about does it generate caustics, but just keep an eye on this. Remember this. We'll talk about this in more detail later and talk about what this does and what this means. Now, that is all the materials in the material editor. I do want to take a brief second. We're going to get rid of the plain material. I do want to take a brief second to talk about how some of these materials work and some of the things we can do with some of these materials. So I'm going to go back to the cube material. We'll go back to the cube material, and I'm going to actually turn off the displacement. And we're going to go here into color, and I'm going to add in a texture. And so we're going to, in here in the texture, we're going to add in a load an image. And we're going to load in maybe this picture of, I don't know, maybe the USA map? Yeah, maybe the USA map, or maybe even just a pattern here. We're just going to go here to this. We'll go to masks, or maybe into blending. We'll go to blending here, and we're just going to grab in some kind of a pattern, a texture, something else that has some kind of a look to it there, like so. Ooh, maybe even the Coca-Cola logo here. So we have a Coca-Cola logo here, and we have this Coca-Cola, or maybe just, yeah, the Coca-Cola logo. You know what, we'll stay away from brand loyalty. We'll go to this picture of fire. Then we add this picture of fire in here. It's going to ask us, do we want to load it into the path? No, no, no. And it loads this picture of fire in here. So now on each of these boxes, you will see there is a different playback of this fire on each of the sides of here. And we could say in here, viewport animate preview, so we can play the fire back, and we'd have each fire rolling through here. This can be a little bit overwhelming, but we have fire rolling. It's the same video. It's the same picture inside of here. Well, one of the things you'll notice is that if we click on the material here, it's going to give us the materials controls to show us materials. If we click on the material as the tag, and the tag is the thing on the end of the object, the tag right here shows us some controls that we have for the tag. So there's some controls that we have for the tag of how the tag would look. We'll actually go to this cube mat here, and we'll actually apply this cube mat to the plane. This is going to be a lot of fire. Maybe not. Maybe we'll undo. Maybe we'll add it to the sphere. We're going to go the cube mat to the sphere, and we're going to throw it on the sphere as well. We can actually just click at this one that's the sphere mat. If we hover over it, we'll just replace it. You don't want to add it to the end. If you add it to the end, it will work. You can just apply to the sphere. It'll add it next to it, and it won't do this one. Now it'll do this one. But I really like this idea of just grabbing this. We'll undo for a second. I like the idea of not applying it this way, and just applying it on top of this one, and it just replaces that. And usually replaces with the same attributes. But here, if you click on the tag, you'll see that this tag, this one has fire, and this one has fire as well. You'll see a couple different controls here for how this thing works and how this thing applies. One of the first controls is the projection type. Now, the projection type, by default, is something called UVW mapping. Well, UVW mapping, as far as I understand it, is basically kind of just wrapping this up. If you took like a third grader wrapping up a Christmas present, right? A third grader doesn't know how to make creases and folds, and I don't know if you've ever worked with third graders before, but man, when I was in third grade, I used to just wrap Christmas presents by just putting the package on the wrapping paper and then just like bunching it up into a ball and trying to fit it everywhere, and then just taping it down. Like that's what UV mapping does. It just decides to do its best job to wrap this whole thing around this thing to the best of its ability. Is it great? No, but it's doing what it's doing. So it's doing its idea the best it can as an idea. There's some other projection methods. There's one called spherical, which you'll see if I take the cube and change it to spherical, it's going to change how this maps. So it basically takes a ball and shows a ball around it, almost like if it was inside of a projector, and it puts the ball around it and it projects that way. We're actually going to change rather here just for demonstration purposes. This may be easier than there. We're going to go here, and we're going to go in here, and we're going to say surfaces, and I'm going to go to checkerboard. And so checkerboard right now, if we go to checkerboard and we set checkerboard as a UVW mapping, so we'll click on this checkerboard pattern, and we'll say for the checkerboard pattern, we're going to go here, and we're going to say, let's do UVW mapping, which is the default. UVW mapping is usually probably the easiest. So it makes the cube look like that. It makes the sphere look like that. That's how the mapping is. This is using UVW. This is using UVW. This is fine here. I'm just going to delete this one for a second just to have this there. So this looks like there. If we went to, and I'll just command drag, put this back on here for a second. If we went to this one and said here, we're going to change this to spherical mapping. Spherical mapping would make this look like that. So you almost can imagine that if I wrapped this around this and had this project onto here, like almost had like light shine through it, like it was like some kind of an overhead projector, but you were inside the overhead projector and there was a ball, like a light bulb, and this was the shape of the light bulb, and I don't know, it's hard to describe. This was the shape of the light bulb. This is how it would look, and this is how it would project. We can take this one and say, switch this one to spherical as well. And it wouldn't do much difference because this is already a sphere, and so spherical doesn't really make a big, huge difference for this. If we go to this cube, we could try something else. We could try cylindrical, which would be putting it inside of here. We could actually take this material and put it inside of here. Boom, and have this be cylindrical. Sorry, I have too many of these now. And say this one, set this one to cylindrical, it would look cylindrical. And so we'd put a cylindrical on there. But if this was UVW mapping, it would look like this, which kind of UVW mapping 9 times out of 10 is probably your safest bet, just for starters, as an idea. Well, if we take the cube and try the cube and make the cube look cylindrical, imagine if we took this and put this, wrapped this inside of here, and then had whatever this is, the cylinder, it's a tube really, but the cylinder, cylindrical would look like this and would kind of wrap like there. So the cylinder is actually facing upward. I'll show you a trick. Up in here, we've been working so far in what's called model mode. And this is model mode, it's this model mode there. We can actually work inside of texture mode. And so there's a little control called texture mode. Now, in model mode, you'll notice that the E key, right, moves our objects up and down. Whoops, sorry. Moves our objects up and down. Moves our objects left and right. So we have these controls to move our objects left and right. We can move our objects forward and backward. This is there. And rotate, we can rotate there, and we can rotate the object around. Whoops, don't grab the plane. Thank you. And we can take the object, and we can rotate the object left and right, and we can rotate there. We can also scale the object up with the T key and make it bigger or smaller. We have those controls there. If we go into texture mode, I want to show you texture mode, what texture mode will do. We're going to click on this cube texture, and you're going to see this little invisible cylinder. This little invisible cylinder is facing this way. So wrapping around the cylinder, it faces this way. Well, what we can do here is we can literally take the cylinder, and we can say, let's rotate the cylinder. We rotate the cylinder this way. Why don't you watch what happens to the material? It actually rotates, so it's now facing this way. I'm going to rotate it exactly, hold down shift and rotate it exactly 90 degrees. And so we can rotate material this way, like that, and have it be facing different directions. So we can rotate it this way, and you can see as the cylinder rotates around this, this is basically what I said before. So the cylinder is rotating around here. I can take the cylinder, I can say T key, and I can scale the cylinder up, make the cylinder longer or shorter, and change how this material works. And so as I make the material bigger, the cylinder bigger or smaller, I can kind of play with it as an idea. So I can rotate, I can move the whole cylinder, I can rotate the whole cylinder, and that will have an effect on how the material is being applied. But I think this is a really nice visual of what's really happening inside of here. So let's go back, and we're going to stop this. We're going to delete this, and we're going to just add, we're going to delete this material here, and we're going to go back here to the cube material here, and we're going to say this is going to be UVW mapping. We're going to go forward on, and we're going to go here to frontal, which does that, which actually just takes a projection from the front and just shines it from the front as though it was like kind of looking at it. Spatial. Oh, so we didn't look at flat and cubic. So there's flat. Flat does like that, like a flat plane. So you can actually see the plane here, E key. You can see the plane as we move the plane. Well, if we move it this way, it doesn't really do much. But if we move it this way, we can actually have a little, like a flat surface. We can actually rotate said flat surface and change how this flat surface is there. We could switch to another model here and switch to cubic. Cubic puts a cube around it. Again, you can decide what works for you. What works for you in terms of modeling, how this model's on here, and how the texture applies using these different methods. So they have all these different methods. Again, UVW mapping we don't really have a lot of control over, but these methods we have some more. There's also spatial, which gives us kind of an object like this, which is it just does a different math, basically. It's sort of like a cube, but it does a little bit different math. So you can apply these in here. Let's take this cube mat, we'll put this back on here, we'll start simple. We're going to delete this. We're going to put this cube back on here. And we're going to say we're back to UVW. And now here, so we have UVW mapping like this. Inside of here, you can say whether or not this thing tiles. Now this simple surface, this will tile automatically, which means when it runs out to the end, so if we had a smaller image, if we said, for example, we took in the sphere man, instead of New York City, we took a smaller image and we said, we're going to take this picture of this bee. Okay, this bee, not in the search path. So now we have this bee here, and we put this bee here. We put this on the sphere. Replace this with the sphere. It's going to have this bee here. Well, we could take the sphere mat, and we could go in here, into the materials, and we could say, okay, this is going to be spherical mapping, which is fine. We're going to take this and make this smaller. So we're going to hit the T key and make this smaller. It's going to be a smaller bee on the materials. Let's actually go to cubic. And we can have there, and we can have, now we have kind of multiple bees here. Well, we could take this, if we made this smaller than necessary, we could go to this material, and we could say, let's not make this tile. Now it's only on one side. So now we can see the material is only hitting on one side. It's almost like an alpha channel. Except now it goes back to its original color, which was that grayish color that is the default for each layer. But now we only have these here like so. On each side of this, it's broken down to cubes. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. You can see 5 and 6 over here. So we broke it down to a cube, but the cube was only projecting in that area there like so. And that's because it's not tiling. In this category, we can say, yeah, let's make this tile and have this be in more places, in more ideas like so. Well, let's turn off tiling, and we'll turn off tiling. And then there's a control here for offsetting the U axis, so we can rotate it this way. We can actually go more. We can actually rotate a lot. And rotate the V axis and have it move this way. And then we can change the length of the U, make it bigger and wider on the U, or make it wider on the V. And so how big the tiles are, the number of tiles, the repetitions, there's some controls there. There's some controls in here to really coordinate this. For example, let's just make a new thing. Command-N, we'll make a brand new window, I know. We'll make a plane. We'll go here in a plane, and we're going to say, let's just take this. As the last thing, we're going to go here, and we're going to say, okay, let's play a little bit. We'll make a cylinder. We'll do the cylinder. We'll make it a little bit smaller. I'm going to take an actual cylinder size. We're going to make the height 150. And the coordinates, I'm going to put this up 75 on there. And so I have this here. Okay, fantastic. Here's how it works. Okay, so I have the cylinder. We're going to take the cylinder under the object controls, under the caps. We'll add some filling to the caps, a little bit of roundness to the caps. Maybe we'll even turn the caps off, so now we can just, we'll leave the caps on. We'll just leave it as is. We can make this more detailed, but we're just going to take this as a cylinder like this. Maybe we'll make it, this is good enough for us. Maybe a little longer. We'll make this 200. We'll put it up on the screen, 100. And so I want to make some kind of a metal material here. So we're going to go here. We're going to say, for the main body of this, we're going to go here to like chrome. And so we're going to say reflectance. We're going to add some reflectance. We're going to say get rid of default specular. We'll add in a Beckman, and we'll get some Beckman. We're going to add a little bit of roughness, and we're going to apply this material onto the cylinder like there. And so cool. Now we have a cylinder there. It has a little bit of roughness. We can't really see the roughness, so we're going to add in a sky. We'll add in a sky. We'll add in an HDRI. Here we go. Let's get something in here. Concrete, whatever this says. We'll add this into here. Cool. This is going to download this asset, and now the sky. Wait for it, wait for it, wait for it. Think about it, think about it, think about it. It's downloading. You see down here, if ever installing, always look down here and see it says downloading asset 39%. Ooh, it might take a while. See how my internet's doing. It may take some time to download and see if it downloads. There we go, cool. Word is a second there. So now we have this material. So now this looks like a metal can. We could take this and say the material, we could go here to the roughness, maybe lower the roughness to 2% there. A little less roughness, more metal can here. But now we're going to put a label on this metal can. So we're going to add a label to the metal can. And we're going to put a label on the metal can. We don't need the plane anymore. We'll get rid of the plane because it's a little distracting. So we have this metal can inside of here. It looks great, like a metal can. I keep saying metal can. We're going to go here. We're going to grab another material. So we're going to grab another material. And this material, we're going to say on the color channel, just as an idea, on the color channel, we're going to add a load an image. And we're going to grab in this USA map. Yeah, let's grab the USA map here. USA map, and we're going to put USA map on here. No, and we're going to have USA map. So we're going to take the USA map, and we're going to apply the USA map after the Chrome. We're going to have the USA map, and so now we have USA map and Chrome. Now the Chrome still exists on that layer, but what we want to do is we want to take the USA map. We're going to change it to cylindrical mapping. So it's going to have cylindrical mapping. It's going to look like this. So now it looks more like the USA. There it is, the USA. Except we want to do a couple things. We want this to not tile. So it's not going to tile. It's only going to be where it is. And now we want to change the length to a little bit smaller and a little bit shorter here and a little bit... we'll make it a little bit shorter. Actually, we'll leave it 100% around. But we'll just take the length of this and make this a little bit, maybe like 60%. And then we're going to take this and say the offset on the offset on the U is going to be, nope, sorry, the offset on the V is here, and now we have kind of a there. And so now we can change the size plus the offset and put this as kind of a label around here. So we just change there and have this like so. And so now we have this as kind of a label around here. So we have a can that has a label on it, and they're mixed together in terms of there. So we can have this on that, like so. If we took this and we said take this cylinder and took this on the caps and we got rid of the caps, you would notice here that if we looked inside, and this is an important distinction, that there's also so there's the cylinder, the inside of the can. We can probably add more segments to the can. I feel like we want like 32. You would notice that in here, there's also the map on the inside of the can. But we want this material to not be on both sides, on the inside and the outside of the can. We just want it to be on the front side of the can. And now it's only on the front side of the can. So now we have the can. The front side of the can has the, you know what I'm saying. And we have it like there, and we have this in terms of a can like there. And we could tweak this. We could make adjustments to this material. We could make this material, maybe we could go in here and say add some reflectance, get rid of the default specular. Maybe we'll add some GGX. This will make this chromy as well, but we're going to go here to layer for now and turn on dielectric so it looks like there, but it's still somewhat, so it's like a kind of a glossy label on the can. And you could set, I don't know, plexiglass or something, some kind of gloss refraction index and have it there like so. Now, we could also go in here, make a third material, and that third material could be color, load image, and we could say William Shatner. Now, when we first apply, no, it's not in the search path. Now, when we first apply William Shatner, now William Shatner has some alpha. So he's a material that has some alpha. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to alpha, because he's over white. So here, I'll show you. If we apply William Shatner here, he's going to apply over this entire thing, and he's going to apply as white over this entire thing. Okay, a couple things we don't want. So now we have William Shatner. We're going to say not make him tiled, and we're going to say let's change the length. We're going to make him shorter and smaller, and we'll make him smaller this way. So he's only like a little William Shatner logo. We'll just make this 50 by 50 here. We'll just make a little, like a sticker, almost like a sticker on top of this. So now we have a William Shatner sticker just on one side of this. This isn't the William Shatner sticker, but this William Shatner sticker had white on the back of this. But I know that this William Shatner picture right here had alpha information. So this is the William Shatner, sorry, yes, sorry, not load image. William Shatner locate image. This William Shatner here had alpha information. So he had alpha built into him. He's built here with alpha. Let me just click on William Shatner and just go like this. So you can see that he's got alpha in here. There's some transparency behind him. It's one of the nice things that my graphics will let me show. So I have William Shatner here. So I'm going to go to the alpha information, and I want to say alpha information, add alpha. And I want to say texture, and I want to reload this image. I could actually go back to this, this color channel and say copy this, copy shader, and go back to this alpha information and say paste shader. And then there. And so now he's cut out, because now we have him as we have the alpha information, the image alpha from this image, which is the black and white pattern that's used to cut this out. And now William Shatner, oh boy, y'all weren't ready. William Shatner's there. Man, it's a William Shatner sticker there. And we could go back here to the William Shatner material. Inside the texture, the material tags, attributes, We could change the offset and move him down. Maybe we'll move him over to Texas. So he's right there over Texas. And have the sticker there. So you could add these materials and can move these materials. Could you do this as well by taking this and going to here and saying, let's make William Shatner cylindrical and move it like this? And yeah, you can move this like this and have this here and offset this with the material controls there. And we could rotate this to rotate William Shatner to a different place here, like so. We could also rotate him like that, and he would move like there, which would be weird. We wouldn't want to do that. But we can move William Shatner around this way using this. But you can also use these controls right here to play with the offsets, etc., and control how this is here. So now we have this. We've made this. I think this is amazing. I don't know if you feel this is amazing. This weird, I don't know what to call it, this weird USA map, William Shatner, can of root beer. I feel like it would be root beer. I feel like William Shatner, if he was traveling across America, would drink root beer. We'd have this can, just like this, in here. I think, you know, at this weird train yard factory, whatever this is, by the water here. I don't know what this is shot of. Something maybe in Germany or something. I don't know. It's crazy looking, but it's cool. Anyway, this is how we can apply materials. This is the additional attributes of materials. I think it's a good lesson. I felt pretty good. You guys keep playing, and we'll come up with more things we can do in Cinema 4D, as well as in After Effects and Premiere and Avid and all the other software we'll talk about in these courses, in these tutorials. Cool. Have a good afternoon.